Maya sat in the rocking chair beside Noah's crib, gently patting his back as he drifted into sleep. The soft glow of the nightlight bathed the room in warmth, casting long shadows that flickered along the walls. Lucas stood near the doorway, watching the peaceful rise and fall of Noah's chest, mesmerized by the quiet intimacy of the moment. It was something he had missed, these small fleeting seconds of closeness, of family. He stepped closer, careful not to startle her. "You're getting good at this," Maya murmured without turning, her voice soft but carrying an unmistakable warmth.
Lukas lädt out Akvi-Chackel.
"I've had a good teacher." She finally turned to look at him, her eyes reflecting exhaustion but also something deeper, something that made his breath hitch. He knelt beside her, his gaze lowering to Noah's tiny fingers curled into fists. The sight of his son, safe and content, filled him with a kind of pride he had never known before. "I used to be afraid I'd never be a good father," he admitted, his voice almost a whisper. Maya tilted her head, surprised by his vulnerability. "Why would you think that?" He hesitated, as if searching for the right words. "Because I didn't have the best example growing up. My father," he swallowed hard. He was present, but not really there. His love always felt conditional. "I don't ever want Noah to feel that." Maya's heart clenched. She knew Lucas had complicated feelings about his past, but hearing him voice his fears made her see him in a new light. He wasn't the reckless, overconfident man she had once loved. He was different now, more thoughtful, more grounded. "You're not your father, Lucas," she said firmly.
Noah adores you.
"And I see the way you look at him, the way you take care of him. You don't have to prove anything." He exhaled slowly, as if her words had lifted a weight off his shoulders. "Thank you," he said, his voice laced with gratitude. A comfortable silence settled between them, broken only by Noah's soft, rhythmic breaths. Then, as if drawn by an unseen force, Lucas reached out and brushed his fingers against Maya's. It was a fleeting touch, barely more than a whisper of contact, but it sent a shiver up her spine. She looked up, meeting his gaze. His eyes held something raw, something unspoken. "Maya," he hesitated, searching her face. "I never stopped loving you." The words settled between them, heavy and undeniable. Maya's breath caught in her throat. She should have pulled away, should have set boundaries like she had promised herself. But in that moment, all the years of heartache, longing, and unresolved emotions crashed over her like a tidal wave. She started, but the words failed her. Lucas didn't press her. He simply held her gaze, waiting, hoping. The weight of the moment became too much. Maya stood abruptly, stepping away as if distance could dull the intensity of what had just passed between them. "It's late," she murmured. "We should get some sleep." Lucas nodded, though disappointment flickered across his face.
"Yeah,
of course." As he watched her retreat down the hallway, he clenched his fists, reminding himself to be patient. He had come this far. He couldn't give up now. Maya tossed and turned that night, sleep refusing to come. Lucas's words echoed in her mind, looping endlessly until they became impossible to ignore. "I never stopped loving you." She pressed a hand against her chest, as if that could calm the erratic beating of her heart. It wasn't that she didn't believe him, she did. But love wasn't the problem. Love had never been the problem. It was everything else. The pain of their past, the broken trust, the fear that history would repeat itself. She had spent so long convincing herself that she had moved on, that she was strong enough to be okay without him. But then Lucas had come back, slowly, carefully, proving himself in ways she never expected. And now, she was losing her grip on the walls she had built around her heart. By morning, exhaustion weighed heavy on her shoulders. As she stepped into the kitchen, she found Lucas already there, pouring coffee into 2 mugs. He glanced up when he heard her, offering a small smile. "Rough night?" he asked, sliding a cup toward her. Maya nodded, wrapping her fingers around the warm ceramic. "You could say that." They sipped their coffee in silence, the tension from the night before lingering between them. Lucas finally broke the quiet. "Maya, about last night." She inhaled sharply, bracing herself.
Lukas,
But before she could finish, her phone buzzed on the counter. She grabbed it instinctively and saw Emma's name flashing on the screen. Relief flooded her, an escape. "Hey," she answered quickly, turning away from Lucas. Emma's voice was filled with curiosity. "Okay, I need an update. You've been spending all this time with Lucas.
Don't tell him nothing's happening.
Maya rubbed her temple.
It's complicated.
Emma scoffed. Of course it is. But is it complicated in a good way or in a run-for-the-hills way? Maya hesitated, glancing back at Lucas, who was watching her with quiet patience. I don't know, she admitted.
Emma seid.
Look, I know you still have feelings for him. But you have to ask yourself, do you trust him? That was the real question, wasn't it? Trust. After ending the call, she turned back to Lucas. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
He hesitated before adding, I meant what I said last night, Maya. But I know you're scared. I get it. She looked down, guilt gnawing at her. It's not just about being scared. It's about whether I can believe in us again. Lucas's expression was unreadable. He nodded slowly. Then let me show you. Let me prove it to you. Maya didn't respond right away. But something inside her whispered that maybe, just maybe, she wanted to believe in them again too. And that terrified her more than anything. Maya spent the rest of the day in a daze, Lucas's words replaying in her mind like a song she couldn't turn off. Let me show you. Let me prove it to you. There was a sincerity in his voice that she couldn't ignore, a quiet determination that made her chest tighten. But trust wasn't something that could be restored overnight. That evening, she found herself outside, sitting on the wooden porch steps while Noah played with his toy truck a few feet away. The warm breeze rustled through the trees, carrying the distant hum of cicadas. It should have been peaceful, but her mind was anything but. She felt Lucas's presence before she saw him. He stepped out onto the porch, hands tucked into his pockets, and leaned against the railing. Mind if I join you? He asked. Maya hesitated for a second before nodding. Lucas took a seat beside her, leaving just enough space between them to be respectful, but close enough that she could feel his warmth. They sat in silence for a moment, watching Noah push his truck across the wooden boards, his little face scrunched up in concentration. I meant what I said earlier, Lucas murmured. I know you don't trust me yet. But I'm not going anywhere, Maya. I don't expect you to believe in us overnight, but I will earn back your trust. She swallowed hard, staring at the ground. Lucas, But before she could finish, Noah suddenly wobbled to his feet and made a beeline for Lucas. Without hesitation, Lucas scooped him up, settling him on his lap as if it were second nature.
Dada.
Noah giggled, patting Lucas's face. Maya's breath hitched. It still caught her off guard sometimes, the way Noah had so effortlessly accepted Lucas into his life. There was no hesitation, no fear. Only love. Lucas pressed a kiss to Noah's forehead, his expression softening. You're getting stronger every day, little man, he murmured. Maya looked away, emotions threatening to overwhelm her. She had fought so hard to protect Noah, to keep him safe from disappointment, but watching the bond between them grow made her question everything. She took a shaky breath. Okay, she said quietly. Lucas looked up, confused. Okay. Maya forced herself to meet his gaze. Okay, let's try. But slowly. I'm not ready to just fall back into things, Lucas. A flicker of relief passed through his eyes, but he didn't push. That's all I ask, he said gently. Maya exhaled, tension she hadn't realized she was holding easing slightly. Maybe, just maybe, this was a step in the right direction. Over the next few weeks, Lucas kept his promise. He was there every morning to make breakfast, every evening to help put Noah to bed. He didn't push Maya, didn't demand anything from her. He simply showed up, consistently, patiently. And little by little, her walls began to crack. One evening, as they cleaned up after dinner, Maya caught herself watching him. Lucas had rolled up his sleeves, his forearms dusted with flour for making Noah's favorite pancakes. He moved with ease around the kitchen, humming softly to himself as he rinsed the dishes. It was so domestic. So normal. And that terrified her. Because if she let herself believe in this, if she let herself believe in him, then what would happen if he left again? Maya turned away, gripping the counter as doubt gnawed at her. Lucas must have sensed something was wrong because he set down the dish towel and walked over to her. Maya. She stiffened. It's nothing. He sighed, wiping his hands before leaning against the counter beside her. Talk to me.
She hesitated, staring at the floor.
It's just hard. Letting myself believe in this. In you. Lucas's expression didn't falter. I know. Maya swallowed. You hurt me, Lucas. You left when I needed you most. And even though you're here now, part of me keeps waiting for the other shoe to drop. Lucas exhaled slowly. I get it. I do. And I hate that I made you feel that way. She finally looked up at him, her eyes filled with uncertainty. Then tell me, Lucas. Why did you leave? Why did you really leave that night? Lucas's jaw tightened. He ran a hand through his hair, his posture stiffening. I was scared. Maya blinked. Scared. He nodded, his throat working as he swallowed. I had spent my whole life believing I wasn't capable of being a good father. And when I found out about Noah, when I realized what it meant, I panicked. I told myself that if I walked away, you and Noah would be better off without me. Maya's breath hitched. Lucas. But I was wrong, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Walking away was the biggest mistake of my life. And I've spent every single day regretting it. Silence stretched between them, heavy with years of pain and longing. Maya closed her eyes for a moment, willing herself to breathe. I don't know if I can forget, Lucas. He reached out then, hesitating for just a second before gently taking her hand. I'm not asking you to forget, he murmured. I just want a chance to make things right. Maya stared at their intertwined fingers, her heart pounding. Maybe trust couldn't be rebuilt overnight. But maybe, just maybe, it could be rebuilt one day at a time. In the days that followed their heartfelt conversation in the kitchen, a heavy silence settled between Maya and Lucas, a silence that spoke of unresolved hurt and deep-seated fears. Despite Lucas's gentle persistence and the tender moments they shared in the quiet corners of their everyday life, Maya found herself battling a storm of doubts. Every time she looked into Lucas's eyes, she saw the remorse and hope intertwined, yet a part of her could not escape the lingering pain of past abandonment. One cool, gray morning, as the first hints of winter brushed the city streets, Maya woke with a heaviness in her heart that made each breath feel laborious. The promise of a new beginning warred with the instinct to protect herself from further heartbreak. Over breakfast, while Lucas quietly stirred his coffee and Noah babbled happily from his high chair, Maya's thoughts drifted to the days when she had been fiercely independent, determined to shield her son from disappointment. She remembered nights spent crying in solitude, whispering to the darkness that she would never let anyone hurt them again. Now, confronted with Lucas's unwavering presence, the ghost of that pain rose up again. Without a word, she excused herself, retreating to the solitude of her small study, where the only sound was the soft ticking of an old clock. There, surrounded by memories of both love and loss, she made a painful decision. Perhaps Lucas, with his quiet assurances and determined efforts, was too good to remain a distant memory. Maybe her fear of being vulnerable had built an impenetrable wall that now needed to come down, even if it meant losing him in the process. Later that afternoon, as Lucas came home to find Noah asleep in his room and the apartment shrouded in a forlorn quiet, he noticed Maya's absence at the dinner table. The spaces between their mealtimes, once filled with tentative smiles and soft conversation, now echoed with emptiness. Lucas searched every corner of the apartment, his heart sinking with every unanswered call on his phone. When twilight finally descended, he stood by the living room window, watching the city lights flicker into life, and a single bitter thought consumed him. Had she truly decided that the pain of the past was too heavy a burden for them to share? That night, Maya wandered the silent streets alone, each step carrying the weight of a decision made in sorrow and fear. The crisp air did little to clear her thoughts as she replayed every tender moment, every whispered confession shared in the intimacy of their small kitchen. With every memory came the realization that her heart was already breaking in two, one half yearning for love and redemption, the other desperately clinging to the armor of self-preservation. Though she told herself that she was doing what was best for both Noah and Lucas, deep inside, a part of her wondered if she was, in fact, pushing away the very person who was trying to heal the wounds of their past. As the weeks passed in an uneasy quiet, the absence of Lucas's steady presence began to carve a deeper loneliness into the fabric of Maya's days. She busied herself with work and caring for Noah, yet every smile from her son, every innocent giggle that echoed in the empty spaces of their home, served as a poignant reminder of the warmth that once filled their lives. One crisp evening, Maya was at the park, sitting on a weathered bench as the fading light danced across the autumn leaves. Noah, carefree and laughing, ran towards Lucas, who had come to pick him up from a small community event, a scene so natural and heartwarming that it momentarily lifted the veil of sorrow from her heart. Watching Lucas crouch down to embrace Noah, the tenderness in his touch and the way his eyes shone with unspoken love, something stirred deep within her. The sight was a jolt, a wake-up call that shattered the silence of her self-imposed exile. In that moment, the cacophony of doubts that had kept her locked away seemed unbearably loud. Maya realized that every moment spent apart was slowly eroding the fragile chance they had at rebuilding their lives. With a sudden clarity, she recognized that fear had driven her to isolate herself, even when love was beckoning her to come back. Without fully understanding her own urgency, she rose from the bench and made her way to Lucas's apartment, a place that had become an emblem of both hope and heartbreak. Her heart pounded relentlessly as she climbed the steps to his door, each step echoing with memories of happier times and painful farewells. She hesitated for a moment at the door, her hand hovering over the knob as if afraid that crossing the threshold might shatter the tentative peace she so desperately craved. But then, as if guided by an unseen force, she knocked. The sound reverberated through the quiet hallway, and moments later, the door swung open. Lucas stood there, his face a portrait of surprise and guarded anticipation. His eyes searched hers, and in them, Maya saw not anger or disappointment, but a deep abiding concern that melted away the last remnants of her resolve. "Maya," he said softly, the single word laden with hope and regret. With tears glistening in her eyes, she stepped forward, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't want to be afraid anymore." In that instant, every fear, every scar of the past, seemed to dissolve into the shared silence between them. Lucas gently reached out and took her hand, pulling her into an embrace that spoke of forgiveness, acceptance, and the promise of a new beginning. The moment was fragile and raw, a turning point where pain met possibility. As they held each other, the cool night air and distant city lights bore silent witness to the rekindling of a love that had weathered storms and learned to rise again, one hopeful heartbeat at a time. Under a sky that seemed to shimmer with the promise of redemption, Maya found herself unable to resist the pull of memories and hope any longer. One cool evening, as the lingering hues of sunset danced over the city skyline, she led Lucas to the rooftop of their building, a place that had once borne witness to their first tentative kiss. The space had been transformed into a private haven of soft, flickering lights and delicate floral arrangements that whispered of new beginnings. The gentle murmur of the city below provided a tender backdrop to the quiet intimacy unfolding above. As they stepped onto the terrace, the cool breeze caressed their skin and stirred memories of lost moments and the painful chasms of the past. Yet tonight, every shadow was bathed in a forgiving light. Maya's eyes glistened with both apprehension and longing as she recalled the days when they had dared to dream together, when love had been an unspoken promise. Lucas, with his heart heavy from regret and brimming with hope, reached out and gently took her hand, his touch both tentative and resolute. In the silence that followed, every beat of their hearts seemed to echo the possibility of a future unburdened by past mistakes. With a deep, steadying breath, Lucas slowly withdrew a small velvet box from the inner pocket of his tailored coat, the gesture laden with all the sorrow of years lost and the fierce determination of a man willing to reclaim what he had once let slip away.
The soft glimmer of the ring within caught the ambient light, casting teeny reflections that danced across Maya's tear-filled eyes.
In a voice thick with raw emotion and vulnerability, he spoke the words that had been locked away for far too long. "Maya Bennett, will you marry me?" For a suspended moment, time itself seemed to hold its breath. The air was charged with a profound mix of joy, fear, and the weight of every unspoken apology. Maya's heart pounded so fiercely she could almost taste the hope mingled with trepidation in the cool evening air. With trembling resolve and a smile that belied the scars of the past, she whispered, "Yes, Lucas, I will," her voice a fragile yet unyielding promise of forgiveness and renewal. In that singular, unforgettable instant, as the city lights below merged with a sparkle in Lucas's eyes, every regret, every tear shed in solitude, and every moment of heartache melted away, replaced by the tender certainty of a love reborn and the promise of a lifetime spent healing together. The day of their wedding dawned with a gentle radiance that seemed to celebrate their hard-won union. In a serene garden, where nature itself had been invited to witness their vows, the air was alive with a soft rustle of leaves and the distant murmur of joyful anticipation. Family and friends gathered beneath a gracefully arching canopy of blossoms, their smiles reflecting the collective hope that love, no matter how battered, could rise again. Maya stood before Lucas, her eyes shining with tears of gratitude and the resolute strength of a woman who had weathered storms and learned to trust once more. As she recounted the journey that had led her to this moment, each trial, each farewell, and every whispered promise in the dead of night. Lucas listened intently, his gaze never wavering from the woman who had taught him the true meaning of redemption. Their vows were a tapestry woven from fragments of pain and splashes of joy, each word a commitment to mend what was broken and to build a future as luminous as the morning sun. In a heartwarming display of innocence and unity, little Noah toddled down the aisle dressed in a miniature tuxedo, his joyful laughter punctuating the solemnity of the ceremony and symbolizing the new life that had emerged from the remnants of their past. The exchange of rings was a silent covenant of trust and love, each glint a promise that the scars of yesterday would only serve as reminders of their strength. As they sealed their vows with a tender kiss, the assembled guests erupted in applause, their hearts buoyed by the palpable energy of a love that had defied odds and embraced a second chance. The celebration that followed was a jubilant blend of heartfelt toasts, tearful smiles, and a dance under a starlit sky that seemed to whisper that every ending was merely the prelude to an even more beautiful beginning. Amid the soft glow of lanterns and the murmurs of well-wishers, Lucas and Maya shared a quiet moment away from the revelry, a moment in which they simply held each other, knowing that while the journey ahead might still hold challenges, the strength of their bond would see them through. In that sacred, unforgettable day, their wedding was not just a ceremony but a triumphant declaration that love, when nurtured by understanding and forgiveness, could indeed transform even the deepest wounds into the foundation of an everlasting promise. In the weeks following their heartfelt wedding, life seemed to settle into a gentle rhythm, a melody of shared laughter in the early mornings, quiet conversations over steaming cups of coffee, and the soft, unburdened cooing of little Noah as he played under the watchful eyes of his parents. Every day, the scars of the past appeared to soften, replaced by the delicate promise of a future built on trust, understanding, and a love that had been earned through trials and tears. Yet, as if fate had one more test in store for them, a single unexpected envelope arrived on an otherwise ordinary afternoon. Its cream-colored paper and embossed insignia of a law firm, accompanied by a chilling handwritten note, sent a shiver down Maya's spine. The note, scrawled in an unmistakable, menacing hand, read, "This isn't over." A dark cloud seemed to descend upon the couple's newfound serenity as Lucas unfolded the letter with trembling fingers. His eyes, which moments ago sparkled with the afterglow of marital bliss, now darkened with a mix of anger and deep apprehension. The letter revealed that Victor Langston, the ruthless man whose shadow had long haunted their lives, had somehow manipulated his legal battles to secure an early release. The words echoed ominously in the quiet living room, mingling with the fading strains of their wedding celebration that still lingered like a bittersweet memory in the back of Lucas's mind. Maya's heart pounded as she looked from the letter to Lucas, whose jaw was set in a determined line. "I thought we were done with his threats," she whispered, her voice quivering with a mix of fear and disbelief. Lucas reached out, gently clasping her hand as if to anchor her in the midst of the rising storm. "I'm not going to let him tear this apart," he vowed, his tone resolute despite the undercurrent of vulnerability. In that charged moment, the couple realized that their journey was far from over. They sat together, the weight of past betrayals and recent joy intermingling as they plotted their next move. Late into the night, they pored over legal documents and strategic plans, consulting with trusted allies and law enforcement officials. Lucas's fierce determination to protect his family shone through as he promised that every resource at his disposal would be used to keep Victor at bay. Maya, still reeling from the shock, found strength in his unwavering support. Every time her eyes welled with tears, Lucas's gentle reassurance reminded her that they were united in purpose. As the hours melted away into the quiet darkness of early morning, an unspoken pact was forged between them, a promise that no matter how dire the threat, they would face it together, bound by the love they had painstakingly rebuilt and the future they refused to let slip away. The letter, with all its dire implications, had become a catalyst, intensifying their commitment and transforming their quiet domesticity into a battleground for justice, redemption, and the sanctity of family. In the days that followed, the storm of uncertainty slowly gave way to an unyielding resolve. With the evidence Lucas had painstakingly gathered and the support of vigilant authorities, Victor Langston's network began to crumble like a house of cards. The news of his impending arrest spread like wildfire, and his once formidable empire of corruption was dismantled piece by piece. Amid the chaos of legal battles and media scrutiny, Lucas and Maya found solace in the little moments that truly defined their life together. Mornings became a cherished ritual of shared smiles and whispered promises as they prepared breakfast for Noah, whose innocent laughter filled their home with an indescribable warmth. Even as headlines attempted to tarnish the image of their past, the couple's focus remained steadfastly on the future they were building. Late one evening, as twilight painted the sky in shades of rose and gold, Maya and Lucas sat side by side on the balcony of their modest yet lovingly maintained home. Noah, now a spirited toddler, played in the garden with unbridled joy, his laughter mingling with the rustle of the leaves in a symphony of hope. Maya rested her head on Lucas's shoulder, her eyes reflecting the quiet triumph of overcoming adversity. "I used to believe that our past was a chain too heavy to break," she murmured softly, "but now I see that every trial has only made us stronger." Lucas squeezed her hand, his voice gentle and earnest as he replied, "We may not have done everything perfectly, and the scars of our past may never fully fade, but together we've learned that love isn't about perfection, it's about fighting for each other, every single day." In that tender moment, surrounded by the simple beauty of a life reclaimed, the couple embraced the reality that challenges might still arise, that the echoes of old threats could resurface, yet they would face them as one. Their journey was not a fairy tale free of hardship, but a testament to resilience, forgiveness, and the relentless pursuit of happiness. As the night deepened and stars began to punctuate the velvety darkness above, Lucas and Maya made a silent promise to their son and to themselves, that no matter what obstacles emerged, their family would remain unbroken, their love a beacon of hope amid life's unpredictable storms. With the threat of victor finally behind them and a future radiant with promise ahead, they stepped forward into a new chapter, a chapter defined not by the absence of hardship, but by the courage to overcome it, the strength to love unconditionally, and the unshakable belief that happily ever after is not just a dream, but a journey they would share, every moment, no matter what. In conclusion, the journey of Maya, Lucas, and little Noah reminds us that even when life is marred by past hurts and unexpected twists, hope and love have the power to rebuild what once seemed irreparably broken. Their story is not a fairy tale free of conflict, but a testament to resilience, forgiveness, and the strength found in unity. Through heartbreak and hesitation, they discovered that true happiness is not measured by the absence of pain, but by the courage to embrace vulnerability and fight for a future together. As they continue their journey hand in hand, they show us that every ending paves the way for a new beginning, one filled with shared laughter, healing, and the unwavering belief that no matter what challenges may arise, love will always light the way forward. Thank you so much for listening to the entire story and for watching the video. I truly appreciate your time and support. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Your support means the world and helps bring more engaging stories to life. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. See you in the next story.